Hello, everyone. This is the Board Game BBQ podcast, and it's Jules here, your host for today, this evening, the morning, whatever the time you're listening to this is. It's episode 261, and I've got the Queensland team joining me. I've got Def. How you doing, Def?
I'm good, mate. How you been?
I've been great. We've just come off a weekend of the Sydney game day. It was an epic one. Lots to talk about there. But I've also got Adrian. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Queenslanders, right?
Queenslanders.
Broncos just won a game and something happened and they're in a semi-final or something. And also another Brisbane-based Queensland team won or something.
No idea what you just said, but okay.
Neither do I. But I know that Queenslanders won 2 sporting events and they're in a something.
Well, yes, you are correct on the AFL and NFL, but...
I'm sorry, if it's not with a round ball, proper round sphere, I'm not interested.
Well, as you can probably hear, this is where everyone gets their sporting news, but also their board game news. And while I mentioned I've been having an epic weekend, I believe, Def, you have as well. Do you want to share what's happened this past weekend for you?
Sure. I think this week I've played probably most games than all the games that were played on the Sydney game day by everyone.
Probably,
I must have played
that's accurate.
So just quickly, I look at my list. Since Monday, we're recording this on a Sunday. So in the full week, I've played Mage Knight, Age of Innovation, Framework, Age of Steam, Age of Innovation again, Zia, Shot in the Dark, Nana, Exploding Minions, Root, Lorenzo il Magnifico, Framework again, Anachrony, Trailblazers, Age of Innovation again, Age of Steam, Hansa Teutonica, Revive, Trois, and Tiletum.
I think we need to contact the Guinness World Records. There might be something in there, maybe a name in a book that needs to go in.
Yeah, I've played a lot this week. To be perfectly honest with you, it feels a bit overwhelming, and sometimes it kind of feels like it's going on autopilot.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And yeah, most of these games I played before, but I had some great new games. I really enjoyed Trois. I really enjoyed Revive on the Table. I played it before, but only on TTS, and it's probably the fiddliest game to play on TTS in the first place.
Yeah,
it's been a big week in terms of gaming for me. I got a lovely gift from my game group on Wednesday. We meet up once a week and we play games together, and they brought me a copy of Bus, which I didn't have.
That's so cool.
That is really nice. And it was quite a big week. I think from a gaming perspective, a couple of highlights for me were Framework has continued being a massive hit for everybody, including the family, and just making sure that everybody gets included with a game like this where, kids can play and it's a challenge enough for adults as well. And it almost feels like at this point it's our go-to abstract game.
Yeah, right. It's taken over your Azules and Cascadia type deal.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, after circling through filtering through all of the different abstracts that came out the last few years, we still went back to Azul. You know what I mean? Like, it was always the sort of standard game for us to play in the abstract space. And lately, Framework has taken over that, which is fantastic to see, have a bit of variety. So if you haven't tried Framework, I would strongly recommend you do. It's a great game. Lots of fun, thinky enough, but nothing too significant. And yeah, really, really enjoyed that. And the other one I want to call out was we had this 5-player game of Root, and both my girls played with us.
Oh, that would be a bloodbath.
It was. So Connor and Harry were over and we played a 5-player game, and Angie and Penny were in the game. And this time it wasn't like, we had played before in the past, and usually when the girls play, I want to make sure they have fun.
Yeah.
But they were also younger then. And this time it was like nobody was going to pull any punches. We knew they were going to be competitive.
Nice.
And so nothing was given to them.
Mm-hmm.
Angie played the Corvid and Penny played one of the Vagabonds. And they came out swinging so hard. All three of us were trying to figure out a way to stop at least the Vagabond. We just couldn't do it. Penny ended up the game with 30 points.
Wow.
Angie had, I think, 23, and everybody else was under 20 points.
Wow.
I was last by a long mile playing the moles. What's it called?
Yeah,
What's
the Underground Duchy.
The Underground Duchy. It was great fun to play.
Yes.
But Penny targeted my buildings and just completely obliterated me. So it was really interesting to see that dynamic, I think. And it also made me wonder how my sort of game life would be if the girls were regular gamers, if they wanted to play on a regular basis. But at the same time, it makes it special when they do want to play, because I never want to force them or pressure them into playing.
That makes sense.
And, it makes it quite a bit special. And so being able to play with friends, but also with the girls together, was the highlight of this week for me.
That honestly sounds like the dream birthday weekend, honestly. Like, I haven't got to do much for my birthday the past couple of years because of COVID and moving and things like that. But, man, I saw all the pictures throughout the week as you were playing with your family and with Connor and Harry, and yeah, it looked awesome.
I don't know how Connor found the time to play the games. He was posting more photos than playing the games. I don't.
That's true. Well, I guess I should mention about Epic Weekends as well. As I mentioned, we had the Sydney Game Day just gone, and it was a great turnout. Really high energy this time. Lots of people, so many games going on. It was just a fantastic day. I hardly got to play any games. I did get to do some gaming. It was just, I taught Nightmare Cathedral, which was a long game, but absolutely loved that. Really, really loved that. I'll talk about that more in a bit. I got to do my classic 2 rooms and a boom, ran through 2 games of that, had over 20 people playing, and it's the game that it never fails to deliver. You get the group together and you have that reveal of where the president and the bomber were, and the whole crowd just erupts going, because no one ever knows everything. It's such a good game. And had
Jules,
yeah.
You mentioned before that there was like really high energy in this game day, and I think Adrian said something similar about the previous Brisbane day. I wonder if you guys think this is partly because of these social games that have been played on these days, like 2 rooms and a boom, where they kind of bring, a couple of dozen people together, and it kind of creates this sense of team, or this sense of, doing something all together, as opposed to these smaller groups of 3 or 4 at a table. Do you guys think that has something to do with it, or it's just a natural thing that evolves?
I think it's something that does evolve, and I think it's almost like the tides. Like, sometimes the game days are sort of they're all great. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're a little bit lower energy, and sometimes they're higher energy. And I think that things like your pitch car and your 2 rooms and a boom and things like that, and even Ready, Set, Bet, like things like that just bring an atmosphere of just madness, always perk up that room, which is usually by 7 p.m. settling in for the night to playing heavy Euro games. Whereas you put in like 20 people playing 2 rooms and a boom at 7 p.m., the energy of all those people, it just brings up the whole spirit of the room. And I feel that that's what happened at the last Brisbane Game Day. Like, it was like 7 p.m, everyone settled down, and then, I announced 2 rooms and a boom, things are going, then people all start shuffling and moving around, and they all sort of congregate in an area, and they're all talking, and you know what it's like when everyone else is talking loud, then the other groups at the tables, they have to talk loud because everyone else is talking loud, and everybody's excited for no real reason, and then you play a game like that, and it just elevates the room completely. So
yeah, there's definitely something to that. I guess we had games of Blood on the Clock Tower running all day. I think they ran 3 sessions of it, which was really, really cool. I've did my 2 rooms and a boom, but also for some reason, some of the volunteers and another group, a big group of people, decided to set up an epic pitch card track in the middle of the room, and the screaming and the hollering going on around that table was insane. I was trying to learn a prototype game that Sarah had brought along, and they were just meters behind us, and you'd hear the flick, and then everyone just screaming at the top of their lungs. It had like a big loop-de-loop on the track.
Yeah.
It looks really, really cool. But I love seeing that at the game days. It's always great fun.
That's great.
But yeah, it was a great day, and I can't wait for the next one. These days are always exhausting. I've just been taking it real easy today, but I can't wait to just do it again.
What were a couple of the games that were standouts for the people there, you think, Jules?
Well, that's a great question, Dev. Since probably the crowd in Melbourne haven't seen this yet, but we've implemented a new system to borrow games where people can check them in and out. We have a system that, keeps track of those games and who's borrowed them. And one of the cool things we can do, you'll love this, Dev, is pull out statistics. What games were borrowed the most?
Yeah.
And I sort of have the hookups, I suppose, for brand new games. So I was able to bring probably half a dozen games that haven't released yet from work for people to try out. But at the end of the day, when I just pulled a quick report out, exported a quick report out from the software, the most borrowed game of the day was Cascadia. That's still going strong, real strong.
I think that was second or third in the Brisbane one. It was up there. Like, it'd been borrowed like 3 or 4 times. So it's a popular game still.
I think Cascadia, if I remember correct, was borrowed 7 or 8 times.
Wow!
at the Sydney Game Day just gone. The second most borrowed game, though, was one that hasn't been released yet and is going to be at PAX and available at PAX. Is Sky Team.
Okay.
So that's the new.
I've seen something about that.
Yeah,
the 2-player cooperative game.
Yep, 2-player cooperative game, pilot and co-pilot, trying to land a plane while avoiding air traffic, managing the tilt of the plane, the speed at which you're operating, how hard you've got the brakes on. There's all these little elements you're trying to manage, and the pilot and co-pilot kind of have to do their own jobs, but you have to time things together at the same time. So, that was borrowed 6 or 7 times from memory, which was really cool to see. So there's a bit of hype around that one, but we had a massive library, stuff that was being borrowed from Advent Games. We've got our library. We obviously threw some of our own games in there, as well as some new donations from various people. It was just really, really good. And I'm curious to see and track, what games people are borrowing over time. And that will just help us curate that library and make it something that the community wants, and we keep things fresh and exciting for all. So that will be something ongoing that you'll see at the game days if you happen to be able to attend those. But
fantastic.
Are there any other games that anyone wants to mention before maybe I jump into a sizzle?
Well, I have an interesting story. I had someone who I haven't spoken to in almost 2 years randomly reach out to me, posting a picture of the finished state of their very first Barrage game.
Okay.
And said, I got to play Barrage and it was fantastic. And then proceeded to talk to me a lot about Barrage and different things. So that was pretty cool, because it was actually a guest that we had on the show a long time ago who's been listening to the podcast and obviously knows that I am addicted to that game beyond belief. So that was actually Johnny Pack who messaged let us know, which was really nice. And we mentioned and got chatting about coming back on the show in the future. So that was kind of cool. But he's a massive Euro gamer. He's actually in a lot of Euro game Facebooks and different communities that I see him posting and stuff in, which is pretty cool. But he loves his Euro games, so it was pretty awesome for him to just reach back out and be like, man, this game is amazing. So it was kind of cool. I want to talk a little bit about a game that Def just sizzled recently, and that was the Age of Innovation game.
Oh, yes.
Because I played it and I liked it. I actually loved it. I thought it was a fantastic game, phenomenal game. Loved every minute of playing it and crunching and, trying to maximize my efficiency, which is never a good thing for me because that's always a massive challenge. But I kind of feel that it's so much like Gaia Project in ways. I haven't played Terra Mystica, so I can't really comment on it. But I feel like it was a great game, but it's so much like Gaia Project. Would I pick one over the other in any way? I'd probably just play Gaia Project.
Oh, I was going to say, you got to be careful which way you go here with the current presence.
Correct. But I think well, the thing is I mean, I'm not a seriously hardcore gamer or anything, right, in any respect. I play a lot of games, but I don't take them super seriously. And I feel like Gaia Project is more of a serious game in the fact that when you go into Gaia Project, you know everything, right? It's all open. You can see everything. You understand all the principles of the factions, what they can do, what their limitations are. because you can look at the other player's stuff and see it all. Whereas in Age of Innovation, some of these combos and crazy bombastic powers that you can kind of mix and match and bring into the game, you might get caught a bit short because you'll be like, hang on a second, I didn't realize you could do that. And this power mixes with this, and you're getting 2 points every time you do that thing. Oh my God, how the hell am I going to keep up with you? So I loved it. And I love the exploration of doing those combos and thinking of different things and playing it multiple times and trying all these different weird strategies with what you can make in each individual game. But I feel like Gaia Project, because you know what you're doing going in, and you're like, okay, let's draw out 4 factions. You see all the factions, you know what their powers are when they built their certain buildings and what their abilities are. They have that point of difference. What do you think, Def?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there although, I don't take this comparison seriously, but I do pretend that I do, because it creates this, great hype around them, and we have a lot of fun in the community with them. But I think these games are both fantastic for different reasons. I agree with you that with Gaia Project, you walk into a known quantity and you create these relationships with the game and the factions that part of the satisfaction is, oh, I did better this time with this faction, or I learned to squeeze more out of this faction in this game. So I'm improving, I'm doing something better. I've done something I haven't done before with the same tools, with the same things in my hand. Well, with Age of Innovation, the experience is very different. Part of the novelty, I guess, of the game is that every time you have some different tools in your hand to work with, and the faction is combined with a different home terrain, and so they have a different combo there, but then you have a different main building, a palace, which gives you completely different ability. And so it creates this, like you said, this unknown factor and a bit of chaos around, well, you can't really keep up with what everybody's doing. And so you kind of lose that connection with, I don't know if I did well or not this time. From a personal perspective, not from a score, if you won or if you came second or whatever else, but from a personal perspective, you don't have this sense of, constantly improving or constantly replaying, even if not improving, and being able to try different things with the same tools. And I think that's what clicks in my brain with Gaia Project. I think this game also has a very significant advantage of being able to play it with 5. But at the same time, it took us over 3.5 hours to play this, both times I played this week. And so that's a long game. And I don't know any other Euros that would last this long. I mean, a game of On Mars wouldn't take us more than 2.5 hours. No way. For instance, just as a comparison. And so I got to ask myself, how many times would I play this versus, like you said, Gaia Project? But to be perfectly honest, when I bought this, I bought it because I knew the system clicks in my head. This system works in my head, and I wanted a bit of variety. I want a bit of something new. And it has done that. I've played this, I'm looking at my stats, I've played this now 7 times in just the past 30 days. Whether it's going to last the test of time, we'll have to wait and see.
I feel like it basically, the way that the game keeps you interested is by those combos, right? All those crazy different abilities and those mixing of factions and stuff. For me, I think for a game, I think I prefer that. Like, I like that. There's something about that unknown that I enjoy. Because, like, you know, that noise that you make when you're like, oh, hang on a second. When this happens, and then I get the books and I buy this other ability and lock it in my player board, it means that all these crazy things are going to unlock for me, and I'm going to be able to get this engine going. It felt more like I was getting an engine moving.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. That actually works the opposite on me. I prefer the tightness and the extreme boxed-in situations you find yourself in Gaia Project because of the lack of options, because of a decision you made 3 rounds ago impacted your state now, when you kind of go, oh, I'm really cornered. I prefer that to the openness that Age of Innovation has. And I don't think there's any ambiguity there, because both of the games that I had in this week, and they were both 5-player games, and in both games there were new people in Age of Innovation. They've played Terra Mystica or Gaia Project before, so they knew the system. And with both of these games, all 5 players were able to do a ton of things in these games. And you even had moments where somebody, was planning on taking an innovation tile to score points, and somebody else took it instead, and you could see, oh no, I wanted that. And then they found a different tile, or they found another way to score those points, which in Gaia Project, it just doesn't happen. It's a lot more tight. So I think this will definitely apply to people that want a little bit more of a relaxed, a little bit more of a open system, more available options. I want to be able to do more. I don't want to be, feeling an incredibly tight economy all the time. So while, people that want that more hardcore sort of tight game feeling will prefer Gaia Project.
It also looks beautiful on the table, and those wooden components are phenomenal. And I really like the neutral buildings. I thought that was a really interesting part of the game. Clever. Yeah, very clever, very fun. But yeah, it was a fantastic game. So thanks for showing it to us, man.
Yeah, no worries. Jules, you haven't played this yet, have you?
No, I haven't. And the game we played, where you taught me Gaia Project, I really enjoyed. Do you think this is something I would enjoy, Def?
No.
No? Okay.
I think between these two, Gaia Project would be your game, because it challenges you. The game challenges you on top of the players challenging you.
Yeah,
With Age of Innovation, you're competing with the other players and you're having fun doing that, but you don't feel like the game is like in Gaia Project. You feel like you have this hydraulic press coming up on you, and you try to squeeze one credit to do one thing, and you're kind of going, I can't do it. Well, this game is a little bit more open. I don't know. I think you should definitely give it a try and maybe compare notes afterwards and see what you think. Yeah. So some really interesting thoughts there, Adrian.
Thank you. Oh, that's cool. Well, we had Age of Innovation in the library for the game day, and I think it did get borrowed a little bit as well. So, yeah, I'll have to be one I'll give a go.
We spoke about it on episode 259. So if you want to hear more about it, you can roll back on that episode.
Good stuff. So Age of Innovation. You know that game you've been wanting for a long, long time? The one that's been on your wish list for ages? Yeah, that one. The one you've been adding to your cart and taking off again, umming and ahhing about whether you should get it or not? Well, I'm here to push you over the edge and say go to adventgames.com and add that to your cart right now. I bet you that Dean has a great price on it. He's got great customer service, flat rate shipping, and there's so many other goodies to explore on the website. Wonderful categories, all organised to pick the exact game that's right for you and the group that you play with. So head over now, don't hesitate, to adventgames.com.au and add that game to your cart now. Well, I might talk about my sizzle for today because I got to play it at the Sydney Game Day, but also got to play it a week prior, maybe 2 weeks prior.
Yes, please. Go for it. Let us know. I've been meaning. Yeah, I'm really keen to hear about this. I did not back the game. I wanted to back it because it was stunning.
It is.
And because those Polish folk, they know how to make a game. And I don't know. The whole thing looked bonkers, and I wanted to back it, and ultimately I didn't because I'm not an area control guy. And I was like, am I going to play this? Probably not. So I didn't back it. So tell me it's a horrible game.
Exactly the same thoughts as Jeff. Like, I saw that box and I was immediately sucked in. And it was just as I'd started to play a lot of Kingdom Death Monster. So like the dark artistry of that game was like, I was like, oh man, this looks so cool. And then I saw who was publishing the game and I was like, oh, I'm really, really, really interested in this game. And then I read about the game and was like, I'm not as interested. It's not my thing. But then I played Unk and I was like, I should have bought that game because I loved Unk. It was a great game. Yeah. So yeah, go for it, Jules. What do you think?
All right. Well, that was probably one of the longest teasers we've done in a while.
Yes.
And if you haven't figured it out by now, it's Nightmare Cathedral, which is published by Board and Dice, who we all know and love for doing Teotihuacan and all the other T games and many others. So Nightmare Cathedral is an interesting game, and I don't know why they decided to publish this other than the game was inspired by a famous Polish artist, and I cannot pronounce the name. I'm not going to attempt that. But the artist has a very dark, weird, twisted style that he was very well known for. And there's a bio about the gentleman who did all the art, who passed away a while back now in 2005. That's quite interesting. But I guess someone at Board and Dice or someone from outside were just so inspired by these artworks, saying these need to be used in a game because it's so crazy and so interesting. And basically, the core mechanics, I suppose, of Nightmare Cathedral is action selection and area control. But it does things so differently. When the campaign was on, I watched a video. The main thing that caught me is the action selection. There are 5 actions in the whole game that you can select. So very, very basic choices that you've got going on, but some really interesting decisions. So I'm going to do my best to describe a visual because this is really important to understanding how it works. If you imagine an arc of action selection mechanism, so there's 5 spots in an arc shape. And at the bend of the arc, you'll have a dark zone on the inside of that arc. And on the outside top, you've got 2 other dark zones. So basically, the 2 zones on the edges of this arc are touching 1 dark zone each. And that middle one in the bend is touching the middle 3. So on your turn, you'll be able to choose one of the actions on the board that you will come starting in the game in one of the 3 dark zones. You choose one of those night zones. In the game, you are only allowed to choose an action that you are currently not adjacent to. And then you can perform that action and go through that, and I'll explain a bit more in detail. And then there's these little arrows on the location you choose that tell you which dark zone you're supposed to slide into. When it eventually comes back around to your turn, again, you can take an action, but you cannot be adjacent. It has to be one you're not adjacent to. And the way in which they designed the 5 actions, you automatically start to see, oh, okay, so I can't, do this action and then this one on my next turn because I'm adjacent. It's so cleverly designed and so tight that you have to plan multiple turns in advance to be able to combo the actions in a way that you want to. And it's just a fascinating puzzle with so few pieces that I found really, really engaging. Now, there's a couple other interesting things about the game. The 5 actions that you have, everyone has the exact same starting cards, but you can upgrade those. And then your tableau of 5 actions start to become asymmetric throughout the game. They do slightly different things. That doesn't wildly change the game, but those little differences and nuances that you do as you upgrade those actions really start to change the way people focus what they're doing in the game. It's quite interesting. Now, the 5 actions that you can do, you've got things like you can move troops around. There's nothing too crazy there. You can upgrade fortresses, which if you build them high, they give you points at the end of the game, but you always control an area if you have the fort, no matter how many opponents are in there. You've got summoning units. Again, nothing too crazy. There's different rules as you upgrade about how many you can put out and where they go. But also there's ritual, so you can sacrifice your units to move up a ritual track that will give you points for the end of the game and the little bonuses along the way. And all of these, and there's an action to then play cards, which allows you to upgrade your tableau as well as just playability cards that let you do things. Nothing particularly crazy or interesting about those particular actions, but the other twists that are really interesting in this game is the way that combat works. Now, the combat's really simple in that you have to play a card, and everyone has a basic combat card which just has an attack 1 value on it that always comes back to your hand when you spend it. But all of the action cards and the upgrade cards have defense and attack values on the bottom, so they're all multi-use. You've got to be deciding, do I want to spend this upgrade card in battle because it's got 2 shields and an attack, or do I really want to hold on to that and risk losing a lot more of my followers in order to actually play that upgrade card? So there's a lot of tension in the simple battle mechanics. But the way in which battles are triggered is not like in a lot of games that you might say, okay, I move my troops into a territory with an enemy and that triggers a fight. That doesn't happen in this game. Fights only occur when you take an action that says you resolve a conflict. There is no resolve a conflict action, it's always attached to something. Now, the basic actions, your movement action allows you to move and then resolve 3 conflicts. And then there might be other cards you collect throughout the game that do this. The really interesting twist is when it says resolve 3 conflicts, you must do that many if possible, but you don't have to choose conflicts that involve you. So you can go, all right, I'm going to have my 2 opponents fight each other for the first one, and then they can fight the shadows, which are a neutral force that's always on the board, and then I'll fight them once they've been weakened down by those 2 attacks. There's some really tactical decision-making you can do in resolving those conflicts, and it's such a simple to understand mechanism, but it creates some really interesting decisions. And I guess the way in which you're collecting these points is not by attacking so much, but you're trying to get your troops, built up, going out on the board. You're going to be sacrificing a lot of them to move up the rituals track to gain points, but you also want to keep them on the board because there's a lot of dream cards, which are like little objectives that as you complete them, you score points, but you'll need presence on the board to do that. A lot of them is to do with having control of certain areas or building forts to a certain level, which you'll need to keep defended. Sometimes it's winning a battle against someone. Sometimes it's losing a battle against the shadow, which is a neutral enemy. And the combinations of these things I found just a really engaging puzzle. And it has also one of those clever things in a lot of games. It has a follow mechanism. So at the beginning of my description of this game of you have to take an action that you're not adjacent to, well, all the other players, if they are adjacent to the action you've chosen, they get to do a powerful follow mechanism of the same action you've chosen. So in the game, they call it conform and dissent. So if you are adjacent to the player, once the main player has taken their action, if you are adjacent to them, you get to conform or dissent. But if you're not adjacent, you can only dissent, which is sort of a weaker action. Oftentimes it's just draw a card from the deck or something simple. But it means your choices, you have to be aware of what you're trying to do, as well as what actions are you giving to your opponents when they get to follow, especially if they're on upgraded cards. Because honestly, some of the follow actions, once you've upgraded a card, are stronger than the base game card that you start with at the start of the game. It's such a dynamic game. There's so many moving parts. I won't explain too many more of the rules, but I found this game really, really interesting. I've played it twice now at the sort of base level, but there's another board which is a bit more interesting that has a few other elements to add into the game with some like diverging paths, because in the standard game, you're going to build out the cathedral. And once you do, the nightmares come out, which are these neutral monsters, which end up devouring everyone's followers and messing things up. But there's like another track which you don't just statically build the cathedral. There's actually paths and decisions, and the cards actually do the building. It doesn't just automatically happen. There's a lot more to explore in this game. I've really been enjoying it, and I've just found it a really refreshing take on area control, some of the things that they've done in this game.
What's the max player count on that one? Is it
4?
5?
4.
4. So it is 4.
Yes.
Okay.
How long was the games that you played, Jules? Is this a long game? Is this a game that you kind of get stuck into until it finishes? You know what I mean? Or is there a way to accelerate it during the gameplay? How does it go in terms of, what are you getting from it versus how long it lasts?
That's a good question. So it is a long game. I think the first time I played it, it probably took 3 hours. And the second one was 4, but obviously I was teaching, and it's a game that's, it's not for everyone, but there's some really interesting decisions and a lot to look at on the board. This is a big board. It's a big table hog. But I mean, I don't mind that it takes a long time to play.
No.
And I think one of the things I've realized now, having played it twice, is the game starts really simple, but as you build more and spread more on the board, your decisions become more and more open. And as you have more things, you can do more things. And everyone's actions get more powerful as the game goes on. And so you start to have scenarios like, okay, I'll take my action, I will choose to develop, which allows me to play a few action cards, and I trigger all these little mechanisms and combos, and then someone gets to follow, and their follow action, because it's upgraded, means they can play a card, and now they're going to do a sequence of events. And that takes a while, but it's just a follow action. It's still my turn. And so the game really starts to balloon out because all these things start happening. But I find it really interesting. But that's...
You say interesting.
Yes.
I would find it so annoying
Mm-hmm.
if another player made me fight another player before I was ready, and then the other person can come in and just take all my stuff. I would be like, no, not now.
I mean, here's the thing. It's actually not all that terrible to lose battles, because when they die in battle, they go to like a limbo zone. Yeah. And in that limbo zone, you can spend 3 of your followers there to move up the ritual track for free. Because the ritual track has a bunch of symbols which correspond with areas on the board, and you have to sacrifice those followers from particular locations to move up. But you can spend all your dead people from there to just move up for free up the track. So they're not totally wasted. It can be frustrating in a way, but the area control, there's no particular areas you're trying to get. It's more about you positioning yourself to maybe achieve a dream, or set yourself up to do a big sacrifice turn and go far up the ritual track. It's that sort of thing.
Can you knock a player out of the game? Can you knock someone out?
No. Because...
But then the thing is there... I know that you say you can't knock someone out, but is there a point where it's like, Tiny Tim, he ain't coming home for Christmas? Like he's out of this game. There's no way he's coming back.
No, I don't think so, because this is not a high scoring game. Both games I've played, the scores have been, around between 20 to 30 points. This is not a massive, massive scoring game. I guess there's a couple of reasons you can't really be knocked out. One being your starting fort, it can never be destroyed. So people cannot touch that territory. Well, they can walk in and fight you there, but they'll never be able to destroy the base. It's invincible. And I think it's just, it doesn't, how do I put this? It doesn't advantage players in any way to just go hard at someone and just keep attacking them, because they will not be actually achieving anything. The dreams and fighting people, it's not all about fighting people. It's a bit more of a Euro in a way, because you're not trying to wipe people off the board. Yes, you want to maybe do that in one territory because you need to build a fort there in order to achieve a dream. But once you've done that, okay, you probably don't care about it. Yes, you'd like your fort to stand to have points at the end of the game, but it actually doesn't matter beyond that now. You're focusing on another dream now.
Yeah. It sounds a lot like Anunnaki in that respect. Like, you don't need to fight everybody to win that game, but you will want to take territories from players on certain turns, like timing it exactly right.
Yes.
So you have that piece of terrain as things like tick off, and then you can complete, contracts and things like that. But timing's everything. So it sounds like a bit like that.
The other question I had for you, Jules, was this game began as a, manifestation of this Polish artist's work. I'm going to try and pronounce his name.
Yeah, go for it.
It's Zdzisław Beksinski.
That sounds right.
And I guess my question is, when I watched some playthroughs during the campaign, it seemed to me that, yes, they have used some of his art for the locations on the board, but it gave me this feeling that, that was pretty much it. The cards didn't seem to have any art in them, or much art. I can't quite remember now I don't know if they've changed or not. And I guess my question is, how much of the art is highlighted in the final product? Not that it should matter too much for the game, but just from a curiosity perspective, from how the project really began, because it's pretty rare these days to have a game like this, where it's not like if somebody sat down and said, we need to do an area control game, what's the setting? Somebody said, we need to honor the art of this person. We need to find a way to use their work. Oh, let's do a board game. It's very rare. And so obviously, as board gamers, we want a good board game. We don't want a good art piece. So I'd prefer if the game was good and there was less art. And if it sounds like that be the case, but I'm just really curious about what the infiltration, I guess, of the art.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is in the game.
The cards themselves, on the back side, it has some of the art piece that look absolutely fantastic. The front side card with the text, it doesn't really have much going on there.
Sure.
The board itself is beautiful. It's a stunning board.
Yeah, the board is magnificent. It's glorious.
It's quite obvious to tell the area locations are pieces of artwork. I don't know. Obviously, then they filled that in with artwork to make it sort of seamless and tie that style together. There might be pieces in there that are maybe not his. I don't know because I'm not super familiar with his work. But I will be honest. I don't think the artwork came through super strong because once you have all these followers and forts and things on the board, it covers the artwork.
Yeah.
And you start to not look so much at the board, but you're looking at the models over the board. However, I will say one thing that I think maybe they did well at honoring that artwork is the cathedral itself that gets built. It's such a centerpiece to the board, and it looks gross. It's the cathedral on the front box. It looks terrifying. It looks spooky. It's just a really nice centerpiece, and you can't help but look at that throughout the course of the game. I really would love to paint this piece, and I don't know the other piece of artwork that I love in the game. I don't think it's an original of his, but it's certainly inspired. Is the track that you remove the pieces to build the cathedral. Once that's done, and the nightmares come out. You flip it over, and there's this giant gaping mouth that is absolutely horrifying. That as the monsters move around, I should say the monsters are from his artworks, and they are proper creepy and weird. So they've done a great job with that.
So they're like Mitch.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Basically, all the nightmares revolve around devouring your followers. Those devoured followers go into this giant gaping maw. But that's a good thing because you get points if you've got the most there. The cathedral itself to me and that giant maw and the board itself is gorgeous. It's a really striking game. Even though we played in the sort of overflow room for the game day, everyone that walked past that stopped and looked because it was such a sight to behold.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, I could talk more. There's more nuance in the game, but I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I want to explore the new other modules that come in this box of goodness, but that'll have to wait for another time. So that's Nightmare Cathedral.
Cool.
Excellent.
Glad you enjoyed it, bud.
Yeah, loved it. So happy with that purchase.
I'll jump right on in as well and go straight into my sizzle for the weekend. This is a game that I've owned for I think maybe 18 months. Haven't played it.
Boo.
I didn't play my copy. I played somebody else's copy. I actually played Def's game. But don't worry. Don't feel sad for my game because it got punched about 6 to 8 months ago and played at my house while I wasn't there.
Without you. Yeah.
Right.
Without me. Because it's just, it sat there for a while. And that was when I just started to play 18xx games, and I heard that this was a really good game, and I was like, I gotta give it a go. And I just never got around to it, like most things. But it's actually Age of Steam.
Oh, so yeah.
I haven't put it off for any particular reason. Just the opportunities never arose. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes it just happens. You might have a game that you just don't get the opportunity to play. And it's a game that I've always wanted to play with Def because he speaks very highly of it. I've only played it the once, and my first impressions of it was amazing, like a fantastic game. And it also really, really did that thing that Martin did with Brass, and it's just simple as actions, like incredibly simple, but just the depth in the strategy is beyond belief. And also the depth in being able to shiv somebody is also beyond belief. And I will definitely say that during the game that I played, I mean, I had Def in front of me, hands in his head, going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And like trying to figure out ways to maximize his efficiency. But Connor and Harry, they couldn't even sit down. Connor's like rocking backwards and forwards like he's a trapped bear in a cage. Like he looks like a trapped bear in a cage at most times, but he's just rocking away. And then Harry's yelling at everybody else for stealing cubes. And it was just like, I felt like the cool dude at the poker table with the glasses on, like the sunnies on, because I didn't move. But it was just a really interesting game that is very high level interaction and cutthroatness, but I think that we played it incredibly passively. But I think that's a natural reaction to a game like this when you don't really know what you're doing, right? Like it's a learning game. We're learning to play the game and we're enjoying the concepts and some of the things. Yeah, I just thought it was brilliant. Like I thought it was phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to playing it again. I really enjoyed the taking of shares to give yourself like an instant benefit, but then having to pay that back later on and it being like a downfall of your actual end game score. And like we laughed because we played, is it Railways of the West, Def, or Railways of the East? What was the one where I took all the bonds?
Railways of the World, yeah.
Railways of the World. And, I took so many bonds, I was calling myself James Bond as a joke. But like, it got to a point in this game very early on where I was like, I'm not doing that again. Like, I'm going to try and take the least amount of shares and just punch my way through the game. And I managed to come second. I felt like I did really well. And I felt like next time I'm just going to take double that amount of shares and just get a lot of cash early and see what I can come up with. Yeah, it was just an incredibly interesting game. I mean, a multitude of different maps and mechanisms attached to these maps. I know they still release maps for it now, which is also really interesting. Recently, there was a Kickstarter not too long ago that had maps for Age of Steam.
Yeah, heaps of them.
Yep. Yeah, heaps and heaps and heaps of them. So there's a lot of love for this game. And I know I obviously always over exaggerate. That's just what I do. But I could definitely see this being a top 10 game for me, for sure. Like if I got to play this a bunch, and it's that simplicity versus depth thing where it's like it's so simple but the depth is so massive. How could you not love this game and want to place it somewhere high in your love of your collection? So
interesting to hear you talk about this after I've played it so much since I first laid my hands on it, I suppose, and trying to convince other people to give it a go. And not that people are resistant, but it is a game that requires a lot of players to shine, and you need your 4, your 5, your 6 players sometimes, and that can be a natural barrier, I guess. But it's also one of those games that flies under the radar a bit because it's been more than 20 years since it was released, and 20 years for board games is an eternity. And when I included Age of Steam in my top 10 last year and the year before that, that's where I kind of stood for a minute and I said, for a game, if a game has been released over 20 years ago, has so much love and the design is so good that it can compete with modern board games now, and the way they've evolved over 20 years is several leaps of innovation and design and everything you can think of in this hobby, then must be really, really good, and it is. I think there's more than 250 maps that have been created for this. And like you said, Eagle Gryphon still releases new maps now. It's seeing a new sort of almost golden age, I think, the last maybe 2 or 3 years, from the publicity it's getting or the exposure it gets to new players, perhaps. And one of the main reasons is its simplicity and its pace. You don't sit around waiting for other people to take their turns. I mean, they do take their turns, but you fully engage the whole time. And our game took, an hour and 50 minutes for a 4-player game. And Wednesday, I played it again with 6 players, and it took 2 hours. So the game doesn't run incredibly long. It really packs a punch. And the variability and the different little rules and map designs and all of the things that change up the game in between the different maps really make it a fantastic, fantastic game for me. I do think that the game you saw, Adrian, was a very comfortable game because
I could feel that. I could definitely feel it, and that's a good thing,
we played
right?
the Rust Belt, which I've now played many times, and I think I'm starting to think that 4 players is not a great count for this map. It's almost way too comfortable. As a comparison, we played France with my game group on Wednesday at full 6-player count, and that was half the size almost of the Rust Belt map that we played. That was, that was so tight. Adnan at some point stood above the table and said, I think there's going to be a bit of crying this round. So, the game offers so much with such a simple rule set. I think it's a reason why it's such a classic,
It's been a while since I've played this, and I've looked at the box for a little while now. I'm like, oh, do I sell it? Because I'm just not playing it. But I always come back to thinking about the bidding mechanism for turn order and picking those powers just being excruciating at times.
Yeah.
And I love that moment in the game. And just cutting players off, and now they're just like $1 short because they can't replace the track to pass through. It's so good. I need to get to the table again.
It was like a Mexican wave of like, because Jeff would take a spot that Harry wanted, and then Harry would be like, oh, next to me. Then he'd begrudgingly take the other spot. Then I'd take a spot, and then Connor would be like, oh, you dog, I needed that one. And I really liked that bit of it. That made it really interesting. And, I'm thinking about it. And I mean, I love Brass Birmingham. It's a fantastic game, but I don't get to play a lot of 18xx games. And for me, this would be on that level and that tier already, only having played it once. And I feel like if I played this more, I would probably like this more.
Yeah.
I feel the interest in the bidding for the player turn order is fantastic. Like, just for the listeners out there, how that works is basically you bid for player turn order. This the second thing you do in the sequence of play. So the first thing you do is grab these shares, and when you grab the shares, you get an instant cash benefit, right? You might take 2 shares, but essentially at the end of the game, you'll be paying that back, but more. And then when you take those, once you've got your little cash flow, you can use that little bit of cash to bid and determine the player turn order. And you can pass instantaneously, and then you become the last player and you pay no money. But the players that bid for first and second have to pay the full amount of what they bid. And then the player who comes third in a 4-player game plays half of the money. Of course, rounded up, Harry. Don't say, why is it not rounded down? It's always rounded up, Harry. Games don't round down. We all know this. It's not going to be nice to you. It's going to be worse. But yeah, it was fantastic. Just that, it was almost like a game within itself. Do you know what I mean? It's like a little mini game of just that, because everyone's getting frustrated with each other before they've even taken their actions. So yeah, and then that allows you then to pick the actions from the game.
Yeah, one of the other reasons I haven't actually sold this yet is because I haven't played the variety of maps. And to this day, there's one map that has had my attention for so long because of the industry I used to work in the waste industry. I think it's the Sweden map, where I think only one resource type is on the board at the start. And as you deliver them to new cities, it then recycles and becomes a different color resource. And so as you go through the game, that's when you start introducing the different colors of cubes that you need to deliver. You don't just start the game with all of them and you need to deliver to whatever city. That was a fascinating concept to me, and I really want to give that map a go.
Yeah, there's so many different maps that introduce so many sort of novelty mechanics. There's one that I remember watching a playthrough of with the Lincoln funeral car, where it starts. Yeah, there's this little top hat token that you kind of put on the map, and it starts moving around. So every round it's going to move to a different city. And your sort of objective is to try and deliver cubes to the city where the funeral car is going to be, because it gets you extra income. And so you try to anticipate where it's going to go. Not anticipate, you know where it's going to go, but you kind of try to plan ahead. So there's so many different maps that give such different twists in the main game, but the base game, the heart of the game is always the same. And I think that's what makes this game so good. Like, I truly believe, and I've said this before, I think this is one of the best designs in board game history. I think this is one of the best games ever made because of this. And I think a lot more people would really fall in love with it if they tried it. And it can be a bit intimidating if you haven't played these kinds of games before, where there's a lot of bidding. And I was never a fan of, bidding wars and stuff like that. Try to compete with other people with money for whatever is in the game. But as soon as you get into the game, I think it works phenomenally well. Yeah, it's just a fantastic game.
And it's another one of those ones where it's like a 9-page rule book, because it's actually 11 pages, 12 pages, but one of them's the back, which is like a cheat sheet. The other one is like a bunch of different rules for different maps. And then there's the front page. So it really, there isn't a lot to it. It's so simple. Like,
no, you can teach this in what? 10
minutes?
15 minutes? Maybe?
10 minutes.
It's a very, very simple game.
Super simple, but brilliant. Absolutely loved it. Happy to have it in my collection, and now definitely inspired to get my butt into gear and teach it to more people. Like, I'm trying to think how to take it to South by Southwest, but I just figured out I don't need to, because Jules, you're not selling your copy, mate.
There you go. I've got a copy. I can bring it along.
That's it. It's going to be great. So
cool. So that's Age of Steam.
Yep.
All right. There's just one more sizzle to go. What's it going to be, Def? Of all the games you've played this past weekend, what was the cream of the crop?
I don't know if it was the cream of the crop, and it wasn't the first time I played this game, but I think it is worth a sizzle.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that, it's one of those also classic games that have been out for quite some time. And, they approach the game in a simple, clean, persistent way, and you find yourself still really enjoying this, and the game being really popular 15 years after its release, that I think it's definitely worth talking about. And this is none other than Hansa Teutonica.
Oh, yeah, another good one.
So this was released back in 2009. I think that for me, going into the game, I knew what it was about. I knew that it is a highly interactive Euro. And so I also knew that it needs a lot of players to shine. It's one of those sort of old design, well, not old, but it's one of those older designs that almost feels like it was made specifically for a high player count. Mm-hmm. And yes, you can make it work with, smaller maps and things like that, but it really shines at 4 or 5 players. And so Hansa Teutonica is a very simple game where you have these cubes and discs, and they're like your merchants. And you have this map with networks that connect different cities. And these routes between the cities, they have like maybe 3 or 4 spaces, and they have spaces for you to place your cubes or your discs and whatever else. And the point of the game is to gain the most points by progressing what you build on the map, but also how much you advance your personal action capacity. So on your board, the boards are very, very simple. You have a list of 4 or 5 different actions that you can do. And these are all on 5 different tracks where only the first part of each track is visible. So for instance, you have a track which says how many actions you can take your turn. And at the start, you can only take 2 actions on your turn. So an action could be you place a cube on the board. Second action, you place another cube somewhere else on the board. If you can unlock this track on your board, then you take the cube off, which means you have more cubes to place on the board in the first place, but also you now may be able to take 3 actions on your turn. And if you keep progressing that at the very end of this track, you can be taking 5 actions during your turn. And the way the game works is you take all your actions, then the next player takes all their actions and goes around. So another action is to return cubes from the supply, because as you use up your cubes, they go away from your supply and they go to this sort of storage or generic supply, and you have to take them back somehow. So there's the bag action. And at the start, you can only take back 3 cubes or 3 merchants. And as you build that up, then you can take 5 or 7 and whatever else. And the way this works is when you complete a link between two cities, when you've placed merchants throughout the link and only your color is there, you can take an action to complete the link, and you can do one of two things. You can either build on one of the adjacent cities of this link on either side by placing either your cube or your disk on that city, or if it's one of the cities that connect to one of the special actions that you get to upgrade on your player board, you can upgrade that action for yourself. But the trick here is, if you control a city, if you've built on a city and you control it, meaning you have the most cubes on it, you have most merchants on it, then every time that link, that route gets completed, you gain a point. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to balance this three-way exercise between, do I try to build more? Do I try to upgrade my actions? Or do I try to take control of these cities close to the special actions so that when other people inevitably go to improve their actions, I gain points? It's a very, very simple game. Also, taught similarly to Age of Steam, I would say within 10 to 15 minutes max. It's quick to play. A 3-4 player game wouldn't take more than, I would say, 60 to 75 minutes. 90 minutes if it's like maybe 5 players, maybe. And I think that it has this sort of old charm, if you like.
Oh,
even
definitely.
The art
yes.
has this old school Central Europe Eurogame approach where it's, where it's from, which era it's from. Know almost what it represents in terms of board game design. It's just fascinating that some of these older games, how relevant they can still be and how much fun they can produce. I am not, a huge fan of a mechanic if it relies on the players' personalities. And I've said this before, but I've now had games where this is right front and center in games, and I absolutely adore it. And for instance, in this game, I've heard that there's, the game can be a bit mean. And I was like, okay, well, let's see how that works. And the meanness in this game is that if you have a cube on a location, somebody else can come and displace the cube with one of their actions. But what happens then is they have to pay an extra cube to do that. And you get to take the cube that was displaced plus an additional one from the generic supply. So it isn't in your available cubes, and you get to immediately place those in adjacent links. So you actually benefit from that. And so the game creates this interaction that is not really, I got you there. It's more like, I prefer to kick you out there because I really want that spot, but I know that you're going to gain significantly from it.
I suppose the way I've approached that, though, is to put a cube down somewhere knowing that someone will have to do that and I'll benefit from it.
Correct.
And get in the way so I can benefit and make the other person pay the 2 cubes.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuances around how you can use that, and I feel like the more you play it, the more it happens. It's more deliberate. It's exactly the same as Age of Steam that we discussed before. I am 100% sure if we play with Adrian again next week, he will figure out very quickly that a lot of his moves are going to be a lot more deliberate rather than, on the first game, you kind of try and push some buttons, see what happens if I do this. I can transport this cube. I want to build as much track as I can. But there's a lot more deliberate activity that happens and elevates these games because the interaction then becomes much more meaningful and interesting when you're trying to anticipate your opponent's moves and you're trying to benefit from that in advance. It just makes the games open up and more interesting.
Yeah. I've only played this once and it was quite some time ago, but I just remember thoroughly enjoying it. And you hit the nail on the head before. I felt like I was pulled in 3 directions at once. And ultimately, you need to neglect one of those 3 things more than the other because being, really going hard on one of those directions is extremely beneficial. But you're going to sacrifice something at the same time to do that. And there's not enough time in the game to do all the things you want to do.
Yeah, there's a timer in the game, and the timer is whoever gets to 20 points, the game is over.
Mm-hmm.
And you end up doing end game scoring as well. So there's things to do that gets you end game points. But because of this timer, like you said, Jules, there's a very specific amount of things you can do, and you have to choose at some point. I really enjoyed it. I've played this a few times now, and I think it sits very well in this, category of games that we want to have a lot of fun with. There's high interaction with, and only takes an hour or an hour and a half to play at any player count. And so it's almost like a go-to, I feel, with people that want to get this engagement, high engagement out of their game evening. So yeah, Hansa Teutonica, big success for me. If it played, with less players, I would have bought this ages ago, but it doesn't, and I'm happy somebody in my game group owns a copy, and we'll get to play it many more times, I'm sure.
Fantastic. Nice. Wow, that's 3 pretty heavy-hitting board games for our sizzles this week. That would be fun to hear the reactions and comments from you, the community, about these ones, and I'm sure there'll be thoughts that will be shared. Well, with all of the board games talked about, I think we'll have to move on to some announcements and news. If you're heading to PAX Australia 2023 this year, there is lots of exciting things to experience around the tabletop hall, including an activity which is sponsored by Let's Play Games called Games Quest. There will be quest markers located at different tables around the hall, and a passport to collect stickers as you complete all the different demo games on offer. And as you do this, you'll collect prizes like dice trays, bits bowls, and even quality board game bags valued at $100 each, if you complete enough demos to do this. The stock is limited, and we hope to see lots of people trying all the fantastic new games that will be on offer at PAX Australia thanks to Let's Play Games this year. See you at the table. There's a fair few things going on, as we would have mentioned last week, but I'm going to rattle through those again in case people aren't caught up. South by Southwest is happening here in Sydney. There is a lot of events going on. Too many to list. We're going to have a link in the show notes so you can see the schedule of everything going on. Please just also keep your eye on our Facebook community group and Discord for any of the more specifics that we'll be involved with, but we're very much looking forward to South by Southwest. There's also more sooner happening is PAX in Melbourne over the 6th, 7th and 8th of October. That is going to be mad fun. There's going to be a lot of things going on there as well. For Patreon supporters, though, an extra special event, we're going to have a breakfast together. So you'll be able to find the details for that in the Patreon app. So please head over there. And if you can make it, we'd love to hang out with you. Also, talking of game days, the fun doesn't stop for other states as well. We've got Melbourne, the 4th of November. The tickets are on sale for that right now. So this will be the Melbourne summer. No, it's not summer yet in November. It'll be spring. The Melbourne spring game day. And hopefully we can get a large attendance for that one. There's lots of big plans for that game day. Lots of extra things that we like to do in Melbourne. We've had Gameway attend before with the gaming tables, and we hope to add some more fun activities to that as well. So grab your ticket now if you haven't already, because they always go fast. And also, just because we've got it scheduled and we're mad, but we need to get these things done, there's also the Brisbane Game Day, which is on December 30th. And this is going to be a big one as well, Adrian, because it's going to go from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah, Happy New Year's, everybody.
Yes.
We were lucky enough to have the venue place offer us a little extra time on that night because we wanted to try and do something special for New Year's Eve. And we also have Games Australia, Let's Play Games and VR sponsoring the event. So there's going to be a bunch of giveaways and different activities going on for that. So yeah, come and ring in the New Year's Eve with us. It'll be fun. It'll be a bit hectic. 2 a.m., I don't know. But to be honest, like I am usually kicking people out at like 11:30. So if we say 2 a.m., people might just keep playing games. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, so I mean, that means you can start your TI4 game at 8 p.m. and still be fine.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
That's a terrifying thought, Jules. Why did you word it like that?
I don't know. I'm sure someone's going to be mad enough to do it.
More terrifying than me running an 18xx and a coin game on the same day?
You could do it. You should play an 18xx at the game day. It'll be good. It'll be a good one.
Well, I'm hoping that maybe I can come up for that one, but we'll see what the future holds. But that'll be an epic day nonetheless. Well, with all of that talked about, I think we'll move on to our next segment, which is our question of the pod. All right, so last week's question was a spicy one, and it was a topical one, given some of the things that people have been talking about in the community with the Terraforming Mars content on crowdfunding at the moment, integrating AI. The question was, what are the pros and cons of integrating AI into board game design? So we had some interesting responses, and I might let the two of you read off some of those responses, and we can have a little more thought shared as well after that. Adrian, do you want to read off our Facebook response?
Yeah, we had Lachlan Kingsford reach out on Facebook, and he says, happy to use ML with reinforcement training to assist with playtesting. Given the most generative AI for art has been trained on an art without permission of the artist copyright holder, I see using it for art as ethically unacceptable, particularly given that an artist is being replaced by something trained on their art. Which is like, this gives me like Skynet vibes, honestly. I am not easy with this stuff at all. I'm not a massive fan of it, but we will talk about that in a moment, and I'll share my thoughts. We also had Daniel on Discord reach out, and he said that I agree with Lauren that using AI to improve playtesting will become a significant part of the industry. There have been already several games that have made automated testing a part of the process, notably 504 by Friedman Fries. Many of the variants had no human testing, just simulations. I'm not convinced that current AI tools are capable of producing new mechanisms. I think AI art for prototypes is essentially inevitable. Hard to predict how the final art will be accepted by the buying public, although lawsuits by artists might slow down the adoption.
Yeah, no, that's some good points. Look, I'm no expert on AI art or AI in general, but there's like we've said in the question, there are pros and cons to this. There's some ethical questions to ask, but perhaps there is some with simulation, some advancement in board games that may come along. I don't know what the implications of all of this are, but I think it's interesting to have the discussion nonetheless.
Yeah, for sure. Never Say Die for at Twitter reached out and said, I think the ethical parameters of AI aren't being met for most, especially with the use of imagery, as I'm sure you've heard. The thing that bothers me is that it's smart enough to track its sources, yet it doesn't.
Interesting.
So that's an interesting take on using existing material to train an AI. And then on Instagram, John Lowe Architect said, arguably artificial intelligence has been around for a long time in chess as the computer player improving in simulations. But that kind of technology was gated by programmers to a degree. It's only recently that it's become much more accessible when AI can interpret everyday language without the need of coding and has a much wider field that people have been thinking of creative applications. Unquestionably, there are some things that it can help, but it's good to be aware where it shouldn't. For example, rulebook writing. Even in 100 years, you'll never get an AI that can replace Paul Grogan. He just knows human communication for this specialized field.
That's well put, for sure.
We should send this to Paul Grogan, who is a friend of the show and a good friend of mine. It's an interesting position, and for me, I've played chess since I was a kid, and computer simulations helped me learn the game. An interesting article I read a few years ago scared me to death of the evolution of AI. And if you are interested, it's a very popular blog. I'm sure a lot of people would know it. It's called Wait But Why. This guy, Tim, takes massively complex problems or issues and breaks them down and spends months and months thinking about them and researching them, and then writes these very long posts that are almost as long as books. But he has a great way of writing and explaining these things. But I read his 2 AI posts, and the first one was okay because it describes the current situation. The second one scared me to death, but it is fascinating. You should go and read it on the Wait But Why blog. Thank you, everybody, for the responses. These are very, very good. And you could see arguments coming from both ways, some supportive of the evolutions and some being on the other side. I think there's going to be discussions about this for many years to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like it should just be also like an informed choice. Like I feel like almost like how we have 100% Aussie beef on a packet.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could just say 100% AI generated art, and then people can make their own choice.
Yeah,
if you know what
decide
I mean.
if
like,
you want to support it or not.
Yeah, and I mean it's socially at the moment, I think on the whole that kind of thing's deemed as a negative. I don't feel that there's like a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's so good that it's all AI made." Like I feel that the human touch is getting missing, and people generally would prefer that human touch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you've just touched on, Adrian, that's the Kickstarter policy that if it has AI art, that needs to be declared for that exact reason, because people want to make an informed choice about this. And
but I think that they hide it in all the gumph at the bottom. Like it should be clear as day, printed on the box, so you're eating soybeans, not beef heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I know we've made other evolutions over the last, couple of 100 years with technology. And in many of these cases, a lot of human jobs became obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
But in this particular case, and me considering myself a creative person, I think what makes this different is that, you're not talking about a skill that you learn or something that you do for a living. You do it for a living as well, but creativity is part of what makes us human.
Yes.
Correct.
It's something a lot more that comes from the soul of humanity. And I think that's what makes this a different subject.
Absolutely.
It's very, very difficult to take a position on it at the moment. It's so quick and so vastly changing. You don't really know what's going to happen. I think, there's going to be a lot of discussions about this.
Because it is incredibly different to the stage 10 years ago where we were like, self-scanning at a checkout, that's gross. Like that's taking away someone's job and stuff. Like this, I feel is vastly different to that problem. I feel the creativity side of it, I think there's something in that we don't like as a species, really.
Yeah.
If we're going to sum it up, like as a species, we just don't like it. I personally don't like it. I'm not going to be someone that's boycotting it to that degree. It's just I don't know. I'm not that extreme on the view of it. It makes me feel a bit uneasy, especially when I see way too many science fiction films, and I see like The Creator as an example of that. That's just got released this week. The AI and how AI is going to evolve drastically over the next 10 to 50 years. It's going to be insane. And will it get to a point where we can't slow it down? Like, I don't know. I don't know how it all works, but it's definitely interesting. And I know that Jay at 3 Minute Board Games has put an outright boycott on anything containing AI
I saw that.
its games.
Yep.
So people that do feel passionately about it, they are making a stand now. So that's also an interesting time to see content and stuff. So
yeah. Well, with that juicy question, I'm sure that, as Def said, this is going to be talked about more and more as time goes on, that it's not going to go away. And look, as someone who works in the board game industry, I know that there are publishers talking about this and having to come up with policies and stances on what they want to do and if they want to use the tools that are available at all. But this is not going to go away. And I think it's important that we do talk about it as a community. And I think Def said it well, that it's a tool that is messing with something that's so fundamentally human, and that's why it really strikes a chord, or it hits close to home for a lot of people, especially those that work as a creative. So,
but then, like the playtesting aspect. Sorry to jump back in again, but the playtesting aspect is just an automation process almost. So we don't find that as offensive in a way. Like I remember watching a few years ago that they made an AI system that learnt Dota 2, and it played against the top 10 mid heroes, which is a really aggressive playing part of the game, and it played 12 million games in a month.
Wow.
And it was insane, the amount they had learned from the other players as well, even just the human games that it played. Like it played 10 games against different human people, but then it just went on this crazy automation process of just fastly tracking through all these different ways of playing the game. So yeah, just like the chess ones, like they're programmed to play the game a million times so they learn. Like I don't think that we find that as offensive or as upsetting as it doing the creative side of things. So
very good. Well, with that, I think maybe we'll move on to a not so heavy question and talk about something else. Now, the question we've got for this week, we've posed it as follows. What mechanic or system do you want to see in more board games, and what makes it so appealing? Now, this is pretty broad. I'm not sure where we're going to go exactly with this question.
I can take it straight away.
Go for it.
We've just talked about it for the past 2 games, and Def talked about it last week as well. Even with Gaia Project and Age of Innovation, they have that same core mechanic. You're building things, and then when you upgrade them, you're taking those parts, you're putting them back on your board, and you're sort of going through this stepping process of this push and pull thing. That's in Gaia Project, that's in Terra Mystica, and it's in Age of Innovation. That system is phenomenal. Like, I would love to see that implemented in a coal mining game, do you know what I mean? Set in the 1940s or something like that. Just that system can be used for a multitude of games. Just like Age of Steam as well. We just spoke about that. That is a train cube game where you're moving things around different parts, but all the maps have these individual tweaks and these little mechanics and these little nuances to them. So it would be amazing to see those implemented into other games. I mean, obviously, I don't know what those games are, but those systems are so solid. I mean, Def said it himself. It's 20 years old, Age of Steam. And I felt like it had been made yesterday. Like it was a solid game.
Yeah, so. and the original Terra Mystica design, we spoke about this when you were here, Adrian, after that Age of Innovation game, that they could implement the same exact system and make, like you said, an old coal mine game or make a civilization game. You could argue both of these games are Civ adjacent, but like a true civilization game with this system as its base. They're so successful, and I think the commercial success of these games and their longevity also is proving this concept. I mean, we spoke about this. Age of Steam is 20 years old, and Terra Mystica is now not the new game by any means of imagination. It's over 10 years old as well. And so I think they are doing that slowly, and I think these games are a proof that you don't need, to have novel parts in your design all the time. You don't need to always look for that new thing that's never been done before, although that also is significant. But you could take a successful recipe, but refine it and, make it match the theme that you're trying to push, and that becomes a successful board game. So,
well, I don't know if this is a system or a mechanic, because I'm more leaning towards system because I don't think it really has a name. But in the game Resist, the solo game, there's somewhat deck building because you before you actually start playing, you can draft and create a deck, right? And then anything you didn't pick becomes like a reserves deck. And there's so few cards in the game, you might be lucky to get 1 or 2 of those cards from that deck to your main deck. So I wouldn't really call that deck building. However, the main system that you engage with in that game is losing cards. You have to decide whether you want to do the hidden or revealed power of that card. And if you take the revealed, it goes to the other deck, and you'll very likely never ever see that again. It's a game where you start with a deck and all you're ever going to do is lose cards as the game progresses. I haven't experienced a game where you do that. Classic deck building is always add more, and there's a bit of thinning to get things out, but your deck is, for the most part, going to end up bigger than it started at the end of the game.
Yeah,
this game is the opposite. It starts its biggest at the start and will absolutely end up tiny, if not maybe completely depleted towards the end of the game. And I'd love to see a games implement that system more, where you start with something core, whether it's a deck or a bunch of action cubes or whatever, and all you're ever going to do is lose those and deplete those, and you start to feel that scarcity and that tightness, and like a hydraulic press described earlier, just pressing down on you.
Yeah.
Every cube or every card becomes that much more precious because you're only going to lose things. I'd love to see more games implement that, where you're losing things instead of gaining things.
I actually have 2 myself that spring to mind, and I think they're both mechanic based.
Okay.
Possibly. So we'll discuss this and see what you think. The Aeon's End deck builder with the no shuffle rule.
Yes.
Phenomenal. Almost like you can cook the deck.
Uh-huh.
But obviously you can't really cook it 100% because sometimes you're going to use 4 cards in a round, then 5 cards, then all of a sudden where you think your positions, your cards are not quite there. But if you're very good at mathing out games, I think you would be very good at doing that. And that would be imagine playing against people with a deck builder and you almost can count the cards to know what's coming up so you can try and drive these huge combos against each other. I thought that would be genius. And the other one that springs to mind is the Vindication adding different random end game triggers that can end the game on a dime.
Yes.
You could be setting up for the next 30 minutes of your game where you're like, oh my God, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get this, I'm going to build this. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, next turn it finishes. And you're like, what the hell? No, not now. Like, I love that. Some of those games go for 30 minutes. Some go for 2 hours. Like, I think it's brilliant. I love that.
Actually,
the fact that you just never know. You never know when it's coming.
That's a really good one, because I think what's so clever about Vindication and those random endgame triggers is because everything you do in that game is going to progress a trigger, whether it's out present or somewhere hidden in that deck. So you're never really safe with things you're going to do in that game unless you just take move actions and don't do anything. But you're obviously not going to win if you don't do that. But everything you do is going to push an endgame objective, whether revealed or hidden. Very, very clever.
Yeah. I think we've touched on some very significant ones. I want to mention one last one, which is the action selection mechanic from the original Dominant Species design by Chad Jensen.
Oh, yes.
Where you have this library of actions, and the most powerful or most impactful actions are down at the bottom, but you can only take actions starting from top to bottom. So the furthest low you get, you cannot pick actions before that for the rest of your round. And so it creates this fantastic tension. I think we saw a bit of that in Ankh.
Yep.
And I would love to see something like that, in almost like an action economy, where the better the action you take, the less access you have to other actions in other games as well.
Yeah. No, that's a really solid one. I didn't realize that was from Dominant Species when I first played Ankh, but now having played both games, oof, that's a good one. The tension in that is just palpable. I love that one. Very good. Well, we've talked about a few good ones, but I'm keen to hear what the community thinks this week. So what mechanical system do you want to see more in board games, and what makes it so appealing? Please share your thoughts in the Discord, in the Facebook community, as well as Instagram and Twitter. We'll be looking for responses from all of those platforms and hopefully share yours next week on the podcast. With that, we'll move on to the last segment of the podcast, which is Swear an Oath. Right, before we swear our oaths and follow up on the last ones, we just want to give a community plug to our special Patreons. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast. You know, whenever we have the game day, I think, man, this would not be possible without them. This is, they volunteer for us, a lot of them. You know, not all the volunteers are patrons, but a lot of them are. And just, you know, the venues cost money and it costs some money for some of the games that we bring along. All of this would not be possible without those people.
They are the backbone of the Board Game BBQ.
100%. So thank you so much for all those who support us through Patreon. And a special shout out this week to Lisa MJ. Good on you, MJ. There's Russell Pereira, Joseph DeLuca, and Craig Westbury. Thank you all so much for supporting us. There's also, of course, like we say every week, there's more ways to support the podcast. You can be a member of the Facebook community, engage with the questions of the pod each week, talk with us about the games you've been playing. You can do that on Discord as well. There's Apple Podcasts and Spotify to give us ratings and reviews. There's so many other things you can do as well. Just attending the game days, saying hello to us, you know, whenever you come across us at the game days or on Facebook or whatnot. We appreciate all of that interaction.
We say it all the time as well, word of mouth. Like, a lot of people come to the game days and they don't even realize that we're a podcast half the time.
Yes.
Like, it's nice to just mention that and say, hey, if you want to give it a listen, check it out. Like, it's a good way for them to get into the community and get more involved in some of the other things. So
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, our goal is to have some fun, but also to just spread the fun and the joy that we get from board games with everyone. So we can't do that without the greater wide community. So all of the links for how to be involved in all the socials and things that we get up to are linked in the show notes. Okay, it's time for the business end of this podcast, guys. I'll kick us off with a success because my last oath was to teach Nightmare Cathedral at the game day, and I did it. It took 4 hours to play, and I had a great time doing it, but it is done now.
Well done.
Now, the next oath I want to do, I was trying to think about it all afternoon because I've had some large games delivered recently. I had Burn Cycle and Too Many Bones delivered.
Oh.
However, I'm going to be realistic because I know the hectic few weeks I have coming up with PAX, and I'm not going to have time to play those games. However, I did remember I have a Kickstarter that was delivered, but not to my new place here in Sydney, but to Melbourne, because it was during that transition period of me moving that I wasn't able to change address. And it is a card game called Primordial Secrets. It's a little indie game. There's not many backers for it that I backed last year on Kickstarter that has some weird, dark, twisted artwork. And the gameplay really captivated me. Some very interesting card play. And that is sitting in Melbourne at the moment. And because I'll be in Melbourne for PAX, I'll be able to pick it up there and hopefully play it within the time I'm on the next podcast. So I'm going to swear to play Primordial Secrets by the time I'm on the next podcast.
I almost backed that one myself. The art style is it blew me away.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved the look of it.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So
I just didn't get it at the time.
Yeah. Really excited for that one. All right, Adrian, how'd you go?
Terribly. I'm not going to lie. So bad. Everyone's making me play the games they want to play. That's just rude, right?
Totally.
I haven't had a chance to paint my Phoenix, and I think that's just going to be a long-term thing because, I've said it many times, I don't want to rush it. If I get forced into rushing it and I botch it, I'm going to be really annoyed because I've already done that.
I totally get that, man.
I'm not doing that again. But it's still chipping away, like I've glued it to the base and stuff and making some progress. So, progress is good. And I'll put posts on the Discord as I go. I haven't got to hang out with anybody this past weekend apart from Death, Connor, and Harry. So I got to play their game. So I haven't had the chance to show Matt Battlecrest yet, which I will do.
Uh-huh.
But I will make a oath again. So I'll make a third. Why not? I might as well just bury myself in these things at the moment. But it's going to be a bit different and it's going to be a little bit interesting. I'm going to, when I fly down to Melbourne on the plane, whoever I'm sitting next to, that lucky person, I'm going to try and convert them to board gameism. That's my plan. I'm going I'm going to hold out my little book and read out the scripture of the rule book and get into their soul. So I'm going to go on the plane with a few small lightweight games, maybe Azul and Skulls of Sedlic and stuff like that, and see if I can convince the person on the plane next to me to play a game. And I'll take photos and stuff and that as well and post them on Facebook.
That's fantastic.
And Twitter
Love
and stuff. Oh yeah, when I told Harry, he's like, "What, you mean like a random stranger?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're mental." I was like, yes I am. So yeah, it will be fun. It'll be a good laugh. So yeah,
I can't wait to see how that goes. Watch the excuse next time will be, I was sitting on my own in the aisle. There was no one next to me.
Or how I got this black eye was trying to make this person play Azul. So,
yeah.
That is great. Cool. That's amazing. My oath was an absolute letdown because in the middle of all of these sort of board game storm that I had the last few days, I did not fulfill my oath, which was to play Lacrimosa.
Oh my goodness.
So I didn't manage to do that. The main reason being I hadn't played it myself to be able to teach it to other people, and trying to learn the new game when you have like 4 or 5 people together is probably not ideal. So I haven't done that, but I will double down and say that together with Lacrimosa, by the next time I'm on the podcast, I will have played Bus.
Oh, yes. Okay, that's an easy one to learn. The rule book is just a single sheet. So
I'm not
easy.
worried about learning it. I'm worried about finding the people to play it. But I'm sure that my weekly game group will want to play this, given 100%. They're the ones that got it for me. So
bring some tissues because there'll be some tears in that one.
Noted.
It's mean as all get out. Now I'm excited to hear about that one when you report back, Def. Well, with all of that, that's the end of the podcast. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Def. That was good fun.
Thanks guys. Jules. That was great.
And to all the community, we hope that you get to play lots of games over the next week, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.
Take care.
It's going to be interesting on the plane because I'm going to sit down to that person and I know it's going to happen. Like, I'm going to be like a hitman. Like, I know that I'm going to make a hit. That poor person that I sit next to, I'm going to have to be like...
And they have no chance.
They have no chance. They are playing that game. It's going to be... You know what it's like when you go on a plane as well? Everyone just puts their headphones on, looks at their phone.
Don't talk to me.
Ain't happening. This poor person's going to be like, leave me alone, please. Yeah, it'll be fun. The most generative